Now, our panel today is called The State of the Industry, Where Are We and Where Do We Go From Here? I'm so thrilled to have on our panel some people I tremendously respect. Noor and I actually hand-selected them each for their expertise in their different arenas. First, we have Mr. Bong Guerrero, who's the reason we're all sitting here right now. He's the founder and CEO of Fashion Forward. Obviously, no one needs an introduction, but out of respect for formality, I'm doing this. Nadine Kanso is a brilliant designer and creative director behind Bil Arabi. Razan Alazzouni, the creative director behind the beautiful ready-to-wear line, Razan Alazzouni.
Thank you.
We have Nathalie Trad, the awesome designer behind those cool clutches you're seeing everywhere right now, Nathalie Trad, and of course, Sapphire Flair's managing editor, Noor Tehini. Bong, I'm going to start with you. You're the visionary behind this entire thing. You're the reason, really, we're all sitting here. Tell me, what was the idea behind Fashion Forward? What did you feel was lacking in our market that you decided to come up with this initiative?
What was lacking? I think we had everything, really, but they were quite randomly placed. And then I think what was not there was the fact that there was no fashion assembly. And it's really just gathering all the different components and elements and members of the fashion landscape that was obviously growing and brewing over the last decade and a half, if I must say. I mean, having lived here for the last 25 years, we've really come a long way in terms of the fashion stratosphere, if you must say. From when 20 years ago we only had glamorized dress shops making clothes for the ladies of the region, to having the largest stores of the power brands here. What Fashion Forward has hopefully achieved to do is create that assembly where all of us gather and have a dialogue and discuss really how we can put it forward. And with just the recent announcement of the Dubai Design and Fashion Council, with initiatives like Dubai Design District, who have generously support this initiative of the Fashion Talks, and obviously with the members of the media and the rising of such designers and all of this, I think we're just going forward with the industry. So.
I feel like you and I are very rare in that we've both been here for several decades. Yes. In my case, 30 years. In your case, about 25.
2 years, really.
How do you feel it's really changed? Because I remember Dubai back then being just this little tiny city. Fashion was really not on anyone's mind. It was not really commodified. It was not an industry of its own. And now it's this global, power player. What do you allude to the success of all of this happening?
Well, a bit of nostalgia. I mean, 25 years ago, there were probably 3 top glamorized fashion houses. You were but I don't know if you remember the names like Arushi, Ganati, which I co-owned and managed, and Balkis. And those were the top fashion houses. And I mean, they were doing proper couture in those days. It's like our designers would fly to Paris to buy 6 yards of fabric and fly to Saudi and really, cater to the whims of the well-heeled ladies of the region. And couture existed then. And I was really a part of that in those pioneering years. But a lot has happened in the last 2 decades. With in those days, there was only one shopping mall. Satwa High Street was like Champs-Élysées, and it was just a different world. But consumerism was already very high in those days. It just got spread a bit, I think, with the influx of all the Gucci's and the Pradas. I mean, I remember when the first Versace store opened in Maktoum Road, it was a big deal. It was
and Gucci.
Yeah, and Gucci. So obviously a lot has changed. All these big brands have taken a large, if not, the entire share of the pie. But as that was happening, obviously you had all this really, really creative talent that was percolating, brewing, growing, struggling for most of it, to be honest. But the time has arrived. The time is right for them to be championed and for them to be magnified and made visible to the world. And the first step to that is obviously creating a platform. I think Fashion Forward was created at the right time. At the right time. Had it been created 10 years ago, I think it would have probably failed. But I guess the word collective as well is very strong in mind. It doesn't take one, not two, but the whole community to really push it forward. So,
Razan, I feel like you're the living example of the fact that Dubai need not be the only fashion capital in the Middle East. You are famously based in Saudi Arabia. Yeah. I know you only ever come here like once or twice a year, obviously for things like this, but to produce your lookbooks, I know you do come here for the photography of the collection. But other than that, you're pretty much based in Saudi Arabia. I want to know, how do you manage to do that despite the fact that Dubai is widely considered to be the fashion capital?
We face obstacles. Saudi is it's a different world. I think it's very unique in the Middle East because it's very young, and I don't want to say there's no rules, but the rules are being invented I say invented because really they are being invented every other day. When I first started, it was the most difficult thing we faced was getting the proper paperwork to be able to produce clothing in Saudi Arabia, to be able to export clothing and import fabric as something other than a fabric shop. You had to be, when this was 8 years ago as well, we were labeled as a factory, even though we were only 6 employees. So we had to even find a place to rent in an industrial area. And I don't know if anyone has been to Saudi industrial areas.
Hands up, who's been to Saudi?
Industrial areas are basically containers, a bunch of containers from the MENA, and they just put them around in a yard. And we were next to PepsiCo, so it's not exactly where you would think a fashion house should start. But you learn from these things, so they help you grow.
You don't feel any pressure whatsoever that you have to be part of Dubai or you have to eventually relocate to Dubai?
I don't think fashion has a location anymore. I think it's very global. It doesn't necessarily, I don't believe I belong to Saudi, obviously, but I don't think my brand solely belongs to Saudi. It's even as a brand, it's diverse. Like our accessories appeal to a certain demographic, our clothes appeal to a certain demographic, and even different pieces from our line appeal to different cultures. So it's we never tried to be a part of one place. So that's why we never thought of ourselves, and I say we because we're 3 partners, but we never thought of ourselves as, just a Saudi brand.
It's a great message to send, I think, to new designers who think they might not be successful because they're not based in X, Y, or Z fashion capital. But do you think in 10 years down the line you might have some kind of expansion in this part of the world? Do you think it's important? And how do you sort of get the interest of buyers? Do you have a direct-to-consumer business, or do you actually communicate with buyers, meet with them from time to time?
Well, we do meet with buyers all the time. We do a lot of phone calls. And we get a lot of phones closed in our face as well. So it's a matter of just keep on trying. I think eventually we're going to have to move out of Saudi, not the headquarters, but at least open a different branch to increase production.
Another living example, actually, of someone who's really quite incredibly new to the region, to the industry, yet you have had remarkable international success. I feel like every time I see a picture of Olivia Palermo, she's carrying one of your clutches. What do you attribute this to? Like, what are you doing that other people aren't? I mean, obviously the product speaks for itself because your clutches are so beautiful. She's carrying one right now if you guys aren't familiar with it. But what do you do that's different than everybody else? How are you getting this international attention?
I'm not sure I want to compare it to other people, and I don't want to compare it to other designers because each journey is different. And in my case, honestly, I don't think there is a recipe. I think I worked passionately. I worked really, really hard. And I think the ethos of my brand is what helped it sort of spread across the borders a little bit. The ethos of my brand is to innovate, is to create something different. I shy away from copying. I always I always try to think outside the box and think of how I can create something that doesn't exist or that isn't out there. So in my case, I think what helped me is the product that I'm creating isn't, like Razan was saying, it isn't specific to a certain country or specific to a certain culture or specific to a certain woman. I think what I try to do is transcend the borders and transcend the stereotypes.
Obviously, I mean, it does have a universal appeal, as do a lot of other products on the market, but the fact that you got that kind of attention so early into your career was really, really quite a big story, I think, for all of us to tell.
I think I attribute it, first of all, to the product and to what I'm trying to achieve with design, but then I also got incredibly lucky. I got incredibly lucky to have, amazing supporters from the media, from my family, my friends. The media support was instrumental because that's what allowed the brand that's what allowed the brand to be visible to other markets. People carrying the bags in Fashion Week, like you did, during the Chanel show, like other, editors did, like.
Noor is quite a champion of your bags as well. She's carrying them all in pairs,
Noor carried it. The sartorialist took a picture of it. So, it's people like you that have helped me sort of go a little bit further than Dubai and start to go into the international market. The other thing is social media. Social media was instrumental to me. That's where it all started. It actually started at Fashion Forward, a post on Instagram, and that's where, the dominoes started to fall, to tip, and, go in the right direction for me. I think PR has been incredibly important as well. Like Nadine Kanso was saying, it has helped, get the bags in the right hands, of the right people. So that has also helped a lot.
And Noor, other than myself, you're one of the biggest champions of regional talent that I know. I know you're a huge advocate of all the amazing talent around us in the Middle East. You joined our company about 2.5 years ago. Tell me how different things have become since then, because if we look at even our content mix on the site, it was probably just the minority would probably have been Middle Eastern talent. What's changed since you joined?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I think the biggest difference is that the market has really exploded. And you know as well as I do, if not better, that 2.5 years ago, we used to struggle to find talented designers to put on the site. Whereas now we really have the liberty and the luxury to handpick who we want on there because there's just so much talent. I mean, every week, if not every few days, we get contacted by a new accessories designer or a new fashion designer. And it's incredible. And I don't know if they were around and just hiding, or as Bong said, maybe they didn't have the proper structure. And this is where initiatives like Fashion Forward, D3, the Fashion Council really come in, because they have provided a structure for these designers to develop themselves. And so that has helped the market explode. And I think another huge difference is the international attention that the market's getting right now. I mean, a year ago, I think it was about a year ago, we had Moda Operandi, who are one of the biggest e-tailers, come to the region. We hosted a dinner with them, a cocktail reception, and then they spent the next day with a selection of regional designers. Going through the collections, giving them advice. Picking some designers to have on the website as well, which is huge. And I know, for example, that these lovely ladies are stocked all the way to the US. 5 stories, and you're stocked in Brooklyn. Which is just incredible to have our designers all around the world. So, yeah.
I want to talk a little bit with all of you about barriers to entry in this market. You mentioned something earlier, Nathalie, about copying, that you don't copy. And I know, Noor, you and I have this issue constantly that we'll, for example, meet with a new designer in her showroom and we'll ask her, so what was your influence for this collection? And she will actually cite another designer, which in our world is the biggest faux pas. You cannot use another designer as your influence for a collection. You do have a lot of the copying. You don't have barriers to entry. You have people who can quite literally become a designer overnight in this market. They wake up, they want to be a designer, they go to Satwa, they find a tailor, they show them sketches that they haven't drawn. Typically it's of another designer's work, they tweak this and that here. We had a lot of this a couple years ago, and now it's kind of weeding out. But what do you all think about the barriers to entry? Are they still very tough? Do they need to be tougher? Yes. Bong, for example, what is your selection criteria for designers coming to Fashion Forward? Obviously you have to reject some people at some point. Yes. And what do you use sort of to establish those credentials?
Well, for lack of when we first launched Fashion Forward, for lack of some kind of a council that would really screen participants, we kind of like had to step in and act in behalf of the industry, rightfully or wrongfully. It was a bit tough because what parameters do you use? There are celebrated designers that are, I don't know, is it based on commercial success? Is it based on design sensibilities? Is it on celebrityhood? I mean, there's just so many things, and there were new designers that were just had great talent, and some old guards that are subjectively on the left or on the right. It was a bit tough for the fashion forward team really to screen and select, but I think we somehow managed to reflect the mindset of the community, where it was a bit of those that were really successful, the ones that are new ones, the one that needs a push, but clearly the ones that had a great sense of style direction that could possibly be global as opposed to just local. And I'm hoping we're continuing to do that. Obviously, very soon we're going to get the guidance of DFC, Dubai Design Fashion Council. 4 letters we're going to be hearing a lot from here on. But yeah, I mean, that's... and obstacles, a lot. I won't even... It'll take me 2 hours at least to... but I think a lot of funding is required. Media support is starting to come in. If I can just talk a little bit about the media. I mean, I think until about 2 years ago, media largely did cut and paste. They had a lot of canned material from abroad to fill up their pages. They always thought, oh, Middle Eastern, no, we don't go there. We only cover the Ralph Lauren's and the Gucci's on our, precious pages. But I'm hoping that Fashion Forward has changed that. We're hoping that every decent magazine will actually, and any portal would really make sure majority of their content is about homegrown talent.
You should add to the exception that Sapphire Flare did never do.
Of course, that's right. It's one of your swan songs actually is to champion.
Razan, you were talking earlier about getting rejections on the phone. How does rejection feel, even despite the fact that you're so successful?
Obviously, it feels like shit in the beginning.
Yeah.
But
are we allowed to say that? Sorry, Bong.
I'm from Saudi. Maybe I'm allowed. The thing is, obviously, it feels horrible in the beginning, but I have the support of my family, I think, which is what helps me out a lot. The fact that we're 3 sisters working together. So we cry together. We scream, we hit each other. It works. But we end up, we end up balancing each other out. So once we get a kind of rejection, what I want to add is the rejection isn't the bad part. It's when a rejection comes without a comment. When it's rejection and they actually give you something productive to work off of, that's when you accept it and you move on. But when they just say no, like, okay, then tell me what I'm doing wrong.
But I think that's one of the reasons why designers such as yourself do so well, because you're very open to that criticism, whereas a lot of aspiring designers are not. And so you try to give them feedback and they don't want to hear it, and they have this sense that everything they're doing is right and that, they can't be told left from right,
I have had mentors that were, constantly giving me feedback, and I feel like that was instrumental to me actually being able to create a product that appeals to certain people. I had buyers that were mentors. I had editors, I was always open to hearing feedback, from everybody around me. And I think that is what, like Nadine said, that is what's lacking a little bit here. I feel like things need to be a little bit harder. We need to be, beaten up a little bit more in order to be able to, go further and be, more determined to do something that would stand out. Being in a design school, I went to design school, and that's where, they would shamelessly, tear up our work into 100 pieces, even if we'd been working on it for, an entire month. And that sort of helps you, gather everything, gather the pieces, put it back together, and, create something even better.
You mentioned something earlier about buyers. I want to know, what is the increasing role that buyers are playing? Bong, I want to know from you at Fashion Forward and from the designers. Noor as well. I know a lot of the designers you met in Paris in the last 2 weeks were asking to meet with a lot of buyers, but we don't necessarily gain that traction from buyers in this region. What is the problem? Why are we not getting the attention of the buyers?
We will eventually.
Why are we not, though?
He can tell you.
There are no
getting all the hard questions today.
hard questions, but very, very important questions. There are no buyers at this platform right now. I'm the first to announce that. First of all, our dates are too close to Paris. Market Week is still happening, but that's really almost, I would say at this point, irrelevant. Even if the buyers were here, I don't think they have the current mindset to truly support homegrown talent. Not entirely their fault. It's a whole process that needs to happen. I mean, you know, I always remind the participating designers that, you know, pay their fees to participate at Fashion Forward. A token fee, but nevertheless a huge investment on their side, given the scales of their businesses. To maintain showing at such a platform requires investment and discipline and determination. And I keep telling them, you got to be consistent. In any mature market, in any mature platform, you will need to have shown at least 4 to 5 seasons for any rightful buyer to pay you attention. Given the fact that Dubai is just really starting, given the fact that Fashion Forward is really just starting, we have strong buyers here. There's a lot of money. As I said earlier, consumerism is very high here, but the large retail groups have yet to give us serious consideration. But I'm very hopeful and very positive that that is coming. I know that in the last 1 year or so, since Fashion Forward has come about, and I don't want Fashion Forward to take all the credit. I mean, I think it's sort of like a collective momentum that has been happening from all pockets of the industry. Even with the support of the media, I think the retail groups are starting to kind of like be aware of all the various designers that are coming about. And they know that the future is with these brands. As we continue to magnify them, as they become more household names to larger mass, I think inevitably they will have to stock them. And again, not to put all the responsibilities on the just, you know, the council. It will help if they are to lobby policies and incentives for all these retail groups to stock our talent.
If I may say, I mean, I think that we are on their radar at the moment, and that's what I felt, you know, being at Fashion Week. Certain buyers that I call the big dogs, you know, came in and saw our collection, but, you know, they're still keeping an eye. They still want to see consistency. They want to be able to trust us, and I think at the moment we're all quite young. Not all of us. I mean, you know, Nadine has been around for a while, but
I am young.
I'm talking about your brand.
Years in the business, not age.
So I feel like we are on their radar. They are starting to pay attention to us. They're starting to look, but I think they're also waiting.
Yes.
They're waiting to see that, you know, we are consistent and we're not just going to do it for a season and drop off the scene the next.
But tell me more about consistency. How do you remain consistent with a product when you have relatively small production teams? I know, Nathalie, you produce in the Philippines.
In the Philippines.
And Razan, yours, everything is done. Razan, yours, everything is done in-house in Saudi, and you're in Dubai. I mean, I'm guessing you don't have humongous factories. How do you secure sort of the consistency of the product? How do you maintain it?
You have
Despite
to schedule ahead of time. Make sure that they understand what you want, the quantities you want, and just like clear all your things at the workshop, because the workshop, in my case, they work for other designers. So we need to make sure that they're on top of their game. Otherwise, I'm not going to say.
I don't know.
About you guys.
With me, it was mostly training. So I say it with pride, actually. My first collection had horrible finishing, and now we have reached we're on a different stage now but everyone who's been working with me has been there for at least 8 years now. And we've have some new sewers and new beaders, but everyone who's now doing the management has been there for quite a long time. And we learn, it's like trial and error kind of thing. You do learn with time. You do learn you see what went wrong, and you better yourself with the next season. And the consistency and the quality of your product is what would make someone abroad or even in the region keep an eye on you. You know, like it would make them notice you more is when you have a good product and it doesn't go downhill or, you know, quality-wise.
I asked this question of the designers, and I hope there are some aspiring designers in the audience who can learn from this, but what's the case? If you are based in the Middle East, is it more important for you to become successful in the Middle East and then move abroad, or vice versa? Do you go to the international markets, gain some success there, and come back here? Which do you think it is? Nadine, I know in your case, it was definitely a lot of Middle East attention.
Definitely, because the brand is called Bilarabi, that means in Arabic. So it's my market, it's my world, actually. I would love to be internationally recognized, but it's not a must, or it's not something that I cannot live without being there. It would be great for me to be internationally.
But it's kind of like the story of the chicken and the egg, which comes first. I know a lot of designers insist they have to be successful abroad before they do here. But why are we not setting our foot down in the market in which we belong before trying to spread ourselves too thin?
Can I answer that?
Of course.
When we launched Fashion Forward, it was quite a struggle and a challenge to convince a lot of the already successful designers that somehow have been showing abroad already. And in a way, you can't blame them because there was nothing for them before. And why not, So I had to convince sort of like a different sort of like batch or platoon of designers. And as we continue to fortify Fashion Forward, I'm hoping that Fashion Forward will one day, where every important Middle Eastern designer will want to and need to show at Fashion Forward. To me, that's our objective. Now, I always say, for at least the ones that are emerging and looking to be established, it's very important to be a star in your own backyard first. It's very, very important. It's what New York did to the American designers. It's what Paris did to the Parisian designers. It's what London did, and so forth. Especially in these days of connectivity, of instant connectivity, and the fact that this is Dubai and not Timbuktu. We're quite visible to the world. If we do something great here, the whole world sees it, and we're really on the verge of just being, with our partnerships with the likes of Fashion GPS, WGSN, Fashion TV, and the rest, and more will be coming. I mean, obviously, our very best will be in the same sort of like visibility level as those that are in the 4 major markets. Probably more so than any of the other European fashion weeks, just because Dubai is quite attractive to the world.
And there's a critical eye on us at the moment.
There's a critical eye on us, and it also helps that the government has put fashion on their mandate. Dubai is just very attractive to the world, and the best that comes out of here will be able to compete with the rest of the world. And we're hoping that there will be a shift of sort of like all these designers coming back here and showing to the rest of the world. We're hoping that at least some of that will happen.
If I could add to what Bong said, you and I have had this experience in the past where some of the most, I'm not going to name any names, but some of the most successful Middle Eastern designers refuse to be involved in initiatives that are deemed regional or Middle Eastern. And while it's a huge shame, because as you said, they need to be a star in their own background, I think that it's in large part due to the stereotype that's been placed on our industry, and that's also because of the lack of really strict barriers to entry to the market, because they don't want to be associated with the Satwa designer or whoever.
There's almost a stigma against it.
Exactly.
I mean, there's so many Middle Eastern designers who, for example, refuse when we're shooting their pieces, and again, we won't name names, but they refuse to be shown alongside other Arab designers, and they insist on being shown next to French designers, which I think is completely bonkers.
But the stereotype also extends to buyers. I mean, when I first started, a lot of buyers would tell me, we're not looking for Middle Eastern designers. Luckily enough, there was one buyer in Saudi who decided to believe in me. She didn't care how long I'd been around or what I was doing. She just believed in the product. She believed in me, and that's what sort of opened the doors. And that's when I got a buyer in New York. And only then did the buyers in the Middle East sort of start opening their doors to me. So I think the problem here is, I want to belong. I do belong to the Middle East, and I believe that the Middle East is what made me what I am today, and gave me everything that I have. But I feel like the mentality needs to change with regards to the stereotypes that are being...
It's almost as if they don't pay attention to you until they see you've made it
exactly.
successful,
But we're
made
all,
it elsewhere.
But we're all everyone is aware that we're in a very, very interesting phase I call it the sifting period where everything is just being shifted, and I think the outcome of the next couple of years will be very, very interesting, because it's almost like you've got the local and regional pace stepping up with all the initiatives and this platform and all the mandates that are about to come, and then you've got, just gauging on the excitement and that our international guests show us when they come and visit us, and they think we're doing something great. If they think so, we must be doing something great, and we just all need to think we are doing something great, and we're going there. So, sorry, I choked. Water.
We should be all part of that. Everybody needs to contribute to that and make his mark and be proud of where we come from and who we are.
Let's talk about the next 5 years and the next 10 years. Bong, what will Fashion Forward be? Designers, what will your lives be like? And Noor, what will be the increasing role of media in the next 5 to 10 years in the Middle East? I want to hear from all of you.
I'm not applying.
Well, first, I think Fashion Forward needs a family name. I would like it to be called, I'm hoping for it to be called Fashion Forward Dubai in the coming years, very soon.
I know you have a very funny story about why you called it Fashion Forward.
Yes.
Can we tell it here?
No?
No.
I'll touch on that a bit later. But I think we because Dubai is quite the city that can stand tall amongst all the other fashion hubs. So this, which is right now a largely private initiative, needs to be adopted by a higher structure and be given the wings and the strength to really fly. Once that happens, I promise you, we have talent. It's very obvious. And there's a lot of talent that I know will be coming to the platform as well. Some talent that we have missed in the last seasons. And there's a lot of new talents that are coming as well. So to me, the future is very positive. I'm very, very confident that this platform will churn out a lot of great brands that will rightfully take space in our beautiful malls. We have all the malls here and no one is represented there. Again, rightfully or wrongfully, it's just a process that needs to happen and take place. I know, for example, just a couple of weeks ago, one of our designers made a presentation to a retail conference that was supported by one of the larger retail groups here. I know also, for example, that 2 or 3 of the retail groups did studies and monitored what we've been doing in the last 2-3 seasons, where they've actually commissioned research companies to see what's going on.
I got the call.
You got a call, right? So everyone got a call. So there is activity. There's something going on, and it's going to be positive. And the Fashion Forward name?
Yes.
Quick one. 7-8 years ago, obviously I was doing a lot of fashion shows already then for a lot of our designers and a lot of the big brands in Dubai. And I was watching a fashion event, and I was somehow disappointed with just the overall outcome of the event, productivity. Didn't have the right designers, and I just felt it was so backward, And I said, fashion should never be backward. And I said, one day if I'm given the opportunity to create this fashion week or so, and because I couldn't take the name Dubai Fashion Week, I said, why not call it Forward? Because I said Forward, abbreviation of Forward is FFWD, which I thought subliminally could mean or quietly mean Fashion Week of Dubai. So I parked that name behind, and obviously, I with my partners along with the Fashion Forward team, we added Fashion Forward to Fashion to Forward to make sure people think it's not an automobile event.
So it's amazing to see. We have people who are, they've got their 5-year plan, I'm guessing down on a business plan, Bong, and then we have someone as organic as you, and it both works.
I am.
And Razan
well,
and
her shoes as well will get replaced.
Razan and Nathalie, how do you feel about the next 5 to 10 years? What do we need in our market?
I think we need production facilities. It's no, I don't mean anything against the sewers in Satwa. I don't know what that means, but I think we need an actual factory, like a garment factory, that a designer can go and take their designs and can have someone that can work with them on their patterns, create a product that's actually that's a good product. I know that would have helped me a lot if I had that.
Which, in light of initiatives like D3, I think is a possibility in the very short run.
It's shocking. A few days ago, I had a friend that actually told me that Gianfranco Ferri manufactures in the UAE.
Interesting.
I was shocked. You know, I assumed Italian manufacturers in Italy, but it turns out that some of his collection is manufactured in the UAE.
Hey, if China's good enough.
No, then why don't we have access to that? That's my thing. If an Italian designer can come and have a factory here where he can manufacture clothing, why don't we have access to that as designers that are locally?
We have garment factories here, but I think their focus largely have been towards just mass production.
Yeah.
To them, a block of regional designers is not interesting to them for now. But when we present it to them as a block, then potentially it could be commercially interesting for them. And again, to just pay ode to the Satwa tailor. I mean, the Satwa tailor is very important because that is the root of the fashion. That's where it all started. The fashion house I established 25 years ago started in Satwa, in Karama, you know, in Knife Souk. We just need to up their game.
I mean, in your case, it was a matter of a designer going with a lot of innovation, with a lot of original ideas, and going to a Satwa designer. But the example I gave earlier was about, you know, these new, you know, designers, overnight designers, as we call them, who go and they show a Dior dress and say, make that for me, just change this and that. So, I mean, obviously the Satwa designer was very instrumental in the growth of the industry. And
what's also important to add, I think, is education. I think if you really need to have this, you know, why London Fashion Week is successful is because all they need to do is tap into the top-notch students of their colleges. And you have the young Alexander McQueen showing and creating front page news. We need that here as well.
I know, Noor, that's something you're really excited about, like London College of Fashion.
I know London College of Fashion has started setting up courses mostly for accessories designer. I think they just launched a shoe design course. It's just the beginning, and ideally we need something on a larger scale and something that touches on garments as well. But it's the beginning, and it's really exciting.
We only have a couple more minutes. Natalie, I want to hear from you. What is the 10-year plan?
I just want to say, for me, up until this stage, it was quite impossible to plan because things were just coming at me, and I just never expected anything. It was always a surprise. Going forward, I just want to, keep the momentum going, make sure that I stay on top of the product because that is my brand, and sort of, work the expansion from there. I do want to be an international brand, so that's my plan. But in terms of what I find is missing in the UAE and in the region, it is a community that stands together. Being in New York in a design school or in Paris in a design school, the community is what makes the difference. Other designers to share best practices with. Am I the only one going through this, or is somebody else going through this? Feedback on designs, brainstorming. And I think, that's what Fashion Forward is starting to create, this community. That's what D3 is going to give us, all of the designers being in one area altogether, be it architects, interior designers, fashion designers. I think we all have something to learn from one another. And I think without that, it's quite difficult to, to remain creative and to sort of to have that drive to keep going.
My last question before we go on to question time. I asked the designers, what parting words of wisdom do you give to aspiring talent? If there was one piece of advice you could give them, what would it be?
One word: be original. Have your own identity. That's one word.
Razan?
I was going to say the same thing. You need to find yourself before you start a brand. You have to have a style. If you follow a trend, your brand isn't going to last more than 1 or 2 seasons until the trend burns out. But if you find your own personal style, like for instance, like your handbags, she created her own brand. It has a certain style. You will always go back to her for a bag that's unique, that's architectural, that has dimension. It's not something that, it's not a trend. Well, it is a trend, but it's not a die-out trend kind of thing. It's evolving.
Nathalie?
For me, it's find a puzzle, innovate. So try to wipe your memory of everything that you see. Try to wipe your memory of what a table is supposed to look like and try to create it, from you. If it didn't exist, how would you make a table? And that goes along the lines of innovating. And then the word transcend is the word I always try to go by. Transcend barriers, transcend just the exhaustion that you feel. Just, keep being passionate and transcend all the obstacles. And
my question was actually a two-parter. What would you advise them to spend their money on if there was one thing they invested in? Is it PR? Is it marketing? What is it? Is it the factory? Is it the product itself? What do you tell them to do? The product.
Product, for sure.
It's not a fancy PR.
No.
I think
because without a product,
even though a fancy PR is great, don't get me wrong.
No, but without a product, PR can't do anything.
Yeah.
It depends where they're at,
need to
really.
be realistic as well. Sorry, Bong. It's not something to invest in, but I think the biggest piece of advice I'd give them is to be realistic. And I think our Middle Eastern culture is both our biggest blessing and our curse because we're experts at tiptoeing around people.
And we're super ambitious, so we think we can do everything.
Exactly.
Overnight.
And so it's beautiful to have a dream, but you need to be open to criticism when it's constructive. And that's one of the biggest roles of the media, I think. It's to use Bong's word, sift. I really like that. To sift and to basically weed out the weak designers and promote the strong designers. And designers need to be open to hearing what the media has to say, what the experts have to say, what people like the Fashion and Design Council will have to say.
And Bong, for you, what would the one thing be?
Well,
other than coming to Fashion Forward.
Well, yes, it's very top on the list. But I have to assume first that you're already very, very creative, which they've answered. But once you pass that, I think you should really treat it as a business. Every decision you make, it is the business of fashion. It's not about being super creative and coming up with an earth-shattering design. To me, if it doesn't sell, if it doesn't get onto the shelves, you've not really reached your objective.
And I think in this part of the world, you also have the ones who just want to be super famous. So people shouldn't get into it for the wrong reasons, too.
Discipline is very important. Starting your brand isn't glamorous at all. You're on your knees and you're working, and you have to be prepared to go to work every single day, from 8 a.m. up until, whatever time it ends. If it's midnight or 2 a.m., just discipline is really important.
And invest in learning, I think, is so important because you really build a network when you go to these. I mean, you both studied, so you build a network when you go to design school. You as you said, you meet other designers, and a lot of designers are very talented, but they decide that they're talented enough to kind of bypass the learning curve. So I think definitely, if you have any capital, join a course, really learn.
I think you should also invest in a good team.
And a good team.
Yeah. As a designer, the only time I was able to expand, the company expanded, is when we delegated. And I stopped doing everything myself. It's when I just concentrated on design and production. You need to have a good team that understands you and understands what you want, and that can take different components of the business, because it is a business and it's not just design. And usually, if you're artistic and you're a designer, you don't do well in business. So you need someone that can handle the numbers or knows how to as an artist, you get offended when people criticize your work. So you need someone who's a buffer that would be able to represent the brand and then can explain it to you in the proper way. So you do need to invest in a good team.
So the right product, the right people, and hopefully everything else falls into place. Okay.
And fashion forward.
And fashion forward. And fashion forward.
And the media.
Questions.
My question is mainly for Bong. The industry, to me, the fashion industry, is much more than designers. It's, the PR agencies, it's stylists, it's photographers, it's makeup artists. It's this whole community. And my question to you is, I was really inspired by what you said, which is the new wave of Dubai, and, people have their eyes on us, and, there are e-commerce platforms and all these different things that are springing up every single day. So in your future vision for Fashion Forward, how do you see this other community and this other industry getting involved in what you're doing?
Well, the collective vision of Fashion Forward, which is really just is just one part of the formula. I mean, you have a lot of initiatives with the district, with the council, and the media, and all of that. I mean, I think I remember Dr. Amina put it quite nicely in the second season, where she says it's a fashion ecosystem, and we all have roles to play. It's not just about the designers and the collections. You've got the fashion media as well, supporting them. You have, for every, it's also reflected, by the way, in the roster of talks and panel discussions that we have. I mean, we had supermodel Yasmin Lebon yesterday, and that just shows you that we need models to animate their creations. We have investors to the likes of Eureka.com. We have the support of Savoir Flair. Everybody plays a role. We have the support of MAC and L'Oreal, with their stylists and beauty technicians. It's a whole community, and everybody has a role to play. Photographers, we have a young photographer that has photographed beautifully the signature pieces in the gallery. We have a celebrated photographer who made the campaign for Fashion Forward, Teja Al-Patni. So everybody has a role to play, and we all contribute.
We need each other, I think. Yes. We have to read the content from you guys, and we need the support.
We need the support.
It's a domino effect, really, and I think what you asked was a brilliant question, because I know for us as a magazine, it's always an issue. For example, doing editorials in this part of the world, we rarely ever shoot in Dubai because of the lack of photographers and models. So we are a Dubai-based magazine, very, very proud of that fact. I was born and raised here, so this is my home. But at the same time, I never shoot here. I go to Paris. So there's something fundamentally wrong in the system when you feel like you can't depend on your own infrastructure. And hopefully that is something that should change in the next few years. I really hope. Ritu?
Thank you for a really good, candid discussion. My question actually is playing off of something, Bong, you just mentioned. One of the members of that community, which is a key member, are the investors. And we talked about investing in a lot of things, but we didn't actually talk about the capital. And so my question is to the designers. Nathalie, you talked about it is hard work. You're doing a lot on your own. But, at the end of the day, you need money to fuel it. Where does that money come from? What was your experience as designers? Did you have to self-fund? And then to really take it to the next level, and where do we go from here? The question is, can you get funding? And are investors open to it?
I'll answer from my part. I mean, I've been around for a year and a few months, so I haven't really gotten to the stage where I needed to open up for funding. I was lucky enough that friends and family have been, extremely supportive. My family is a part of my business, and so far that has been, enough to sustain ourselves. But going forward, I am pretty sure that we might start needing, investors to come in. And that's where the community comes in as well, if we're a part of D3, then, maybe there's something in place that would be able to help designers and guide designers into, how that process even works. So that's my part. I'm not sure about other.
I think it was different for, we self-funded. I self-funded the company when we first started. I think that's the reason we grew so slowly, was because we started with very small capital. The thing is about the fashion in terms of garment wear, any garment wear, if you're going to take on an investor, he has to be a key member of the team. So he has to benefit you in something other than just money. Because when you're starting, that's not all you need. You don't need the money as much as you need someone that would know in what direction to push the money towards, how to invest it in the right way. So when you take on an investor, you're taking on another member of the team, and you're liquidating some shares, you're giving it away. He has to really, really give something back to you. He has to help the company grow. So I would never recommend taking an investor early on, just because you don't really know where you're going in the beginning anyways. And I don't think you need to necessarily, when you think of an investor, you don't need to necessarily think of someone from the Middle East, because a lot of people from abroad are even investing in the Middle East in different industries. Why wouldn't they invest in fashion? Fashion in the Middle East is very young. The idea of ready-to-wear labels in the Middle East is very young. We're very used to tailoring clothing and making clothing per occasion, but to have a ready-to-wear brand is something new. I think eventually there will be investors. But also when you think of an investor, you need to think of someone that's going to stay on with you for a while.
Ritu, does that answer your question?
I'd like to add to that, actually.
Yeah, my question was really one of the, in covering this market for a while, one of the challenges I often see, the very young designers, who cannot maybe afford to self-fund, and what the option for a very talented young designer would be. And if there's any scope for, I know you have a partnership with Eureka.
Well, exactly. I mean, in season 2, I remember my partner Ramsey was saying, Bong, there's a problem with the designers. They simply don't have money. They're struggling even to participate in a platform that they all want to join, but they're just struggling. And Ramsey made some connections with Eureka.com, and before we knew it, we were partners with them, and it was a great collaboration because we launched the first campaign was with Poupée Couture, and she successfully overfunded her campaign. And there's a bit of advertising because Eureka.com is about to launch another fashion-forward designer. I think next week or in the next 2 weeks. We're launching House of Ronald from Beirut on their portal, so feel free to support that. I mean, that's just one avenue. I know the gentleman you brought forward to the panel yesterday. I'm sure he can shed light to when it comes to finance. And I know that there's I know that there's a Saudi investor that is monitoring as well. A lot of the designers have already engaged initially in conversations with designers, so there is something happening.
Was your question more about something in terms of a fashion fund, more on par with the likes of CFDA?
Yeah, I think we're getting there. Actually, my question was pretty well answered. I think
okay.
I just wanted to bring it up, and I don't want to monopolize.
Okay. Does anyone else have a question?
One more quick question as we're running out of time.
One at the back right there.
If I could add to what to Rita's question, I think the government also has a role to play here, because the fashion industry is an industry like all the others, like the automobile industry and the manufacturing industry, etc. And for an industry to flourish, it needs government backing. So I think maybe in terms of funding, that's something that the government will get involved in. I hope it is.
Slowly but surely.
Slowly but surely.
Question in the back.
My question is directed mostly to the 3 designers over here. You've mentioned how important it is to invest in education, in learning more about your craft. Well, I just graduated myself last year, and I have a degree in jewelry and accessory design. I came back to Dubai after 4 years living in Pakistan, and everything was different. None of this existed. Fashion Forward was very new when I was leaving, and now it's huge. Mashallah, very good job. But the hardest time I had was finding something related to what I do and what I make over here. If you go to the designers, if you go to jewelry houses over here, they're very very fine jewelry based. And that's not exactly my style. My style is more organic, a bit more art inclined. So the question I have basically is, how much are you willing to maybe, I don't know, help young designers like me? Or would you be willing to hire someone, a fresh grad, and teach them as well? Because that's such a huge thing for us to learn from someone who's already in the industry and doing something similar to us.
Sure, go ahead.
I'm going to tell you a funny story. We were chosen last year for the Vogue Italia's first runway show thing. And I had an intern whose name is Noor Tehini. She was our first ever intern. She is an economics major in Wellesley, has nothing to do with fashion. And she walked into the office with me crying because I had the clothes. I don't have accessories, and I'm not an accessories designer. And she has nothing to do with design. And the first thing she did was like, stop crying, Razan, we'll solve this. I'm like, how are we going to solve this? She's like, okay. She went and she got some wire from the beading room, and she started putting pearls into these gold-plated silver wires. And we had our first accessories collection, which started an accessories line, which grew. And I know for a fact that she was our first intern and she was not our last, but we are not the only fashion house that does that. You just need to go it was so hard to find someone who wanted to intern, who wanted to learn or work side by side with you. If you just go ahead and talk to any designer that you like, I'm sure they would be more than willing to learn from you, because now we have an accessories line, and till today I would always say it always started with Noor Tehini, the economics major from Wellesley.
If I can add to your question as well, The only constant in this industry is change, really. The fact that you went for 4 years and came back and things changed, that's only natural. But I love the fact that you want to intern, and I think that's something we didn't touch upon earlier, is that people feel like to make it, quote unquote, in fashion, that you have to start at the top, whereas really in other capitals, you're starting really, really from the bottom, and you're interning, and you're working hard, and you're unpaid. And this is something that I know affects us as a magazine as well. People are just not willing to intern for no salary, which in my mind is completely the opposite of other industries in the world. You should be interning. Obviously, we'll pay for your transportation, for your food, but you're not getting a salary to intern. You're here to learn. So it's so great to hear from you, and I would recommend a lot of people to get in touch with these designers. They have a wealth of knowledge to share with you. They're so generous with everything they know, and interning is really, really a great way to start.
I'm actually going through that right now. I was looking for an intern. I interned myself a lot when I was in design school, and I feel like that helped me and shaped me. I mean, it was the most important experiences so far. And I'm looking for interns at the moment, and I've, sent requests to AUD, to AUS. So maybe, that would be a good platform for you to go, to check. Maybe that's something, interesting that we can think of, is create a platform of exchange between people that want to learn and fashion houses that are looking for people to help. And,
I think humility is key in this industry, because people can't think they're too big for any small task. But there you go. Our panel just became an HR platform. Well, feel free to meet with the designers.
It's also something.
Give us your CVs.
It's also something that Fashion Forward has actively done. I think since season 2, every season we seem to have a lot more interns in the office.
You guys have done a brilliant job in terms of creating this community of volunteers, interns who help out, and it's a great way to start. Do we have any other questions? Another one at the back on the left.
Last one, I think.
It's the last one.
It'll have to be.
She's waving her hand saying we don't have time. I'm sorry.
It's the last one.
Can we make it really, really quick?
Really quick.
Thank you.
I don't know if it's a question. It's not exactly a question. I want to make a comment, and I hope you agree with me that one thing which you have not touched upon is media also. What I see, and please pardon my ignorance if I'm not aware of the full scene, but I think media from the region needs to treat fashion differently, because what I see is what is in, what is out, and the fashion coverage, and not fashion as what media should address fashion, how media should handle fashion. I'm not saying they're not handling it properly, but we need more serious fashion writing to create that culture, because we are talking about educating designers. We are not talking about educating consumers or audiences. So I think there's a need to write slightly differently, more seriously, and address fashion more seriously than it is beyond what is in, what is out, and the coverage of different runaway shows.
I certainly agree with you, and I can't speak about other media, but I will speak about our own magazine. If you're at all familiar with our runway reviews, we have writers who really understand the history of fashion and speak with it in terms of a context of a real business, a real industry. And I do think that, Noor, we're getting a lot better in terms of those real opinion editorials, real serious pieces about the fashion world. The problem that we have, again, is that we touch upon the sensitivities of designers. We're not a censored media, but of course you don't go all out and say someone's collection is awful, because you might know that person. You might bump into them into the supermarket by virtue of it being such a small city. And they do get upset, and people do have emotions, and they do have, diva tantrums saying, why did you criticize me? So again, I cannot speak of other media, but in our own magazine, we are very, very objective. We do, Noor wants to say something, but we do publish very critical pieces. And I urge you to read them, because we have especially one writer on staff who really understands fashion and its history in a context that I've never seen before in the Middle East, and she's really brilliant. Noor herself is at all the fashion weeks. All of our writers are there. Dylan, sitting on the front row, goes to New York. She's doing very, very critical pieces, not all the time, when they're deserved to be. Noor, what did you want to say?
I think also you said that we're educating the designers in the industry, and I agree with you, but at the same time we're addressing our entire readership in one go. And not all of our readers, and actually a minority of the readers in the region, are will be interested in the advice that we give designers in these pieces. I think that's something that we do behind the scenes. We meet with designers, we share advice, and it's something we'd like to do more because, you know, we travel and we've been to the big design houses and we've sat with the couturiers and we've touched that collection. So we have so much knowledge to share, but I don't know if it's always the best place to have it, if the magazine is always the best place to have it, because at the end of the day, your general reader is interested in, what's out, and what color to wear this season. So we're very careful to, I think, address our entire readership.
I'll just add one more thing, which is that as we've grown, so too has our readership. So when we launched about 6 years ago, it was very much a case of educating the reader, because most people didn't know anything beyond a Chanel bag from a Dior bag. They didn't really understand who was the designer behind Dior, who was, for example, is Alexander McQueen based in London or Paris? Really, really simple things that people didn't understand. But over the last 6 years, I think we've really seen a shift in the market and a trajectory where we no longer feel that our role is to educate the consumer so much as to inform them of what is happening. So if you've lived here in Dubai for a while, you might have seen that shift happen. But as it stands, I think the doors really are opening for more critical media.
We have to end.
Bong is saying we have to end. Thank you all so much for coming. You've been a wonderful audience. Thank you.